Okay, at 6 o'clock, I will call the meeting of the Surrey Village Board of Trustees to order. Roll call.
Bell.
Here.
Orozco. Here. Shampoo. Here. Werner. Here. Cox. You're gonna have to unmute yourself, Don.
Here.
There's here. Frodo. Absent.
And can I get the approval of the agenda? Can I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Orozco,
Second.
second by Warner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Comments, correspondence, concerns from the public? I didn't see any in the back.
No.
Okay,
Nate,
yes,
public comment here.
yes.
In order to understand the order of things, may I make a recommendation or suggestion for the budget?
So the next item would be the public hearing, which would be the appropriate time to speak on that.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, then on to item 5, the public hearing for the 2024 budget proposal. I will call the public hearing. I'll open the public hearing at 6:01 p.m. Would anyone like to speak? Yes.
Meg Sigelman, 2214 Scandia Road. I appreciate that the budget was posted in the Pulse. It, gives us a lot of information. That was really helpful. I would like the board to consider adding one additional item, and I think it's a concern not just of me, but to consider adding to the going garbage contract the pickup of leaves in the autumn. Sister Bay is known for these wonderful 100-year-old maple and oak trees, and they drop a lot of leaves. And unless you have a truck, there's nowhere to go with them. And there are so many of them. And I don't know many women who have a truck. And the tradesmen, handymen, they're so overloaded now that they're less and less available, and they don't want to do the rinky-dinky jobs like that. They can negotiate for big jobs now. So our resources and solutions are very limited. And we're doing a lot to enhance the development of Sister Bay, which has been great. It's attracting, as we know, a lot of guests and visitors. But I think there's also a place from time to time to look at the needs of our own citizens. And I think the demographics lean more toward my age group, and a lot of us are on our own, and it's just a service that in many other communities is just a given. And I really think that with the room tax and other extra revenues that have come in, that there ought to be room to look at it, to explore it. And I think it would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Louise?
Just a point of, I just want everybody to be aware of one thing that's listed in the budget if they're reading through it, just so they feel obligated to give some clarification. So on page 6 of the packet, it's noted that there's some increases in the budget and why. And in one of the bullet points, it says increased support to the Sister Bay Advancement Association. And then if you look on page 19 of 39 in the packet, or page, or not page 19, I beg your pardon. If you look on page 25 of the packet, so that's the number on the packet. We are Sister Bay Advancement Association support. It's listed under culture, recreation, and education. And so we are projected in 23 to get 73,908. And that is the budget, and that is correct. And then for 2020, that is not correct in the sense that we have a contract with the village, we have an agreement with the village. And And that agreement for the village in 2023 and in 24 is for 12% of their 30% of room tax. In 2023, that was $57,483. So why does it say $73,708? It says that because the village is charging the Sister Bay Advancement Association $16,425 for the use of the Parks Department. And so well, now we move forward to 2024, and our agreement with the village is that we get 12% again, and we so appreciate that. And that is $63,000. So why does it say $88,326? That's because the village is charging us $25,326 for use of the Parks Department. Not certain why it went up 54%. That's, I guess, that our allocation to the parks went up higher, because in the last 3 years, it's been pretty stable at $16,000. But in 24, we're being charged $25,000. And again, it's an accounting thing, but oftentimes the public will look and say, why is the Sister Bay Advancement Association getting $88,000? And when there's a bullet point in the budget that says one of the reasons that it increases because the Advancement Association got more money. We got $6,000, beg your pardon. Yes, we got $6,000 more from the village in our agreement because room tax went up. We did not ask for a 54% increase in funding from the Parks Department, and we do not get 54% more in service. So I just wanted to be clear about it. It is what it is. However they allocate it, that's how they allocate it. But oftentimes people wonder why we get the money we get, what we do, etc. And it's not, for this discussion, it's not $88,000.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, my favorite, I'm on page 15 of the packet. And I guess I'm questioning, my overall concern is that we're spending $14 million on capital. That's a fairly huge number, and I don't understand where the proceeds from debt come from. That's a $7.5 million revenue item. And so those are my concerns. I've seen references in the package to the parks building. And is there also an admin building that 14 million? I'm a little confused about where all that money is going. And it seems like an inordinate amount of money to spend on capital in a year.
Okay, we're taking input here. We'll address some of these after all the input's taken in. Yes.
So in relation to Sally's question, on page 31 or 19, I'm sorry, but it's a 2024 annual budget, total general fund debt service. So loan number 67, which is a general obligation refunding bond for what will turn out to be roughly about $11.7 million, I believe, and 40% of the balance due on our total general fund debt service will go towards Wilsey infrastructure and the public works building. So there is no payment on that in 24. So I'm assuming that we're to assume that that is revenue in the 24 budget. However, the payments will start coming in 25, and those payments between those two things come by the time 2029 rolls around. It looks, if I'm reading this correctly, roughly not quite $12 million. And so I'm also wondering if the admin building is somewhere in there, but we don't maybe see it. It's loan number 67.
Which page are you on there?
I am on page numbered in the packet, right?
Yes.
So upper right corner, 31. Bottom page of the packet, 19 of 39. So there's 66 pages in the packet, so technically it's number 31. There's two numbers, so I don't want to. But it's the description of the general fund debt service. And it's a debt that and a bond that we're refunding.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Yep.
I just had one comment and then two questions. A fragment of a little bit, but comment that I have is You know, I've lived in this village most of my life and I've watched what has developed over the past decade and, you know, there are some that are happy, there are some that are not. But one of the comments that I've heard continuously is development is good because it helps the tax rate. And I'm not sure that I'm seeing that in Sister Bay. As evidenced by other municipalities around us. The development seems to have driven up the cost of living in Sister Bay in several areas. Specific to my two questions or two comments rather tonight, the zoning enforcement agent that you have in the budget. I do oppose, and I understand that this person is, at least it is my understanding that this person is hired primarily to help us with enforcement on the rentals, et cetera. But I'm wondering if there isn't a better way to go about that. The rentals are, there's some coordination at the collection end as far as supporting the rentals or enforcing the rental. And I'm just not sure that we should bring on another person at $135,000 and create that level of enforcement. I'm sure that it's not sure that it's something that we want. Finally, my last question is specific to sewer and water. I think, again, I'm very grateful for our sewer and water department, for our clean water, and for the people that work here. I think I'm billed fairly for sewer and water, but I have to say that as my three sons grew up here with us, we regularly did 24,000 gallons of water a quarter, and we're billed $100 for almost years on end. Now it's just my wife and I, we do 8,000 gallons of water, and we are billed $300 per quarter. And it's all based on the fixed sewer charge, because it's the charge that we can regulate here. We don't have to go before the Wisconsin Public Service Commission. And I just wonder if, number one, if Liberty Grove Sanitary District is paying the same amount of monies, because in a couple of people that I've talked to, they seem to be, I understand they somewhat set their own rates. But I'm fearful with the amount of debt that we're taking on this year. And I'm wondering aloud, when are we going to have to service a major expansion in our sewer and water facility? When is that projected? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. Okay, anyone else? Ben?
Ken Church, 2295 Hill Road. During a revaluation, and I've been through them before. I'm basing most of my comments on what was written in the Pulse. 12% increase is relatively high, I think. All other years, I can't ever remember being over 5%. Although I looked at my last year's tax and it was up 5.3%. Your budget of spending of 3.8 million and up from 2.7, that's $1 million in 1 year in extra spending. I mean, it's ridiculous. You got all these little incidentals here, $12,000 for bike rack, the bike racks that don't even be used. $11,000 for more decorations. I mean, if I know everybody wants their little pet peeve projects and everything else, but you know, after a revaluation, you know it's going to be higher. Can't those things be put down the road? I mean, and to make more rules that you have to hire somebody else to do it. That's a quick, everything that you hire, people that you hire, that's the biggest expense. $135,000 that you created yourself because you make so many rules. And the other comment was Denise suggested cutting $120,000 and you just ignore it and don't even try to do anything. I mean, very disappointed, let's put it that way, very angry. You got the state that says, okay, this is how much all your property is being worth. Now you gotta divide it all up. My land went up over 4 times the amount, and my infrastructure went up over double. So your proposal here, my taxes are going up just in the village alone, $965. And the most it's ever gone up is like, I'd say $120 in a year. You can't just spend willy-nilly. You're gonna go up 5, 6, you can cut that 12% in half, you're gonna go up 6%. 6%, take the bottom figure, take it up 6%. This is how much money you could spend. You don't just spend to spend. I can go on for about a couple hours, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else? Vivian?
Vivian Nino, 10439 Northwoods Drive. It just, it's a huge increase, and I realize that, everything's going up, but you've got to understand that those of us who are paying this, everything else we've got is going up too. So this is an added burden. Yeah, it just seems backwards. It almost looks like every department got a request for what would you like? What are your dreams? And you got the bottom line from that and then figured out how do we, where do we get the money? Not the other way around. Okay, if we figure how much money we've got, now how do we divide up how we're spending it? So it seems like the process seems backwards this year. I don't know, it's a huge increase, and I agree. Are there a few things that could be pushed? A little patience, wait a year for this. We've got too many things on this year's budget already. What are your priorities? None of us can have everything we want. So it just seems over the top.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Skip Eisler. Been a property owner here since the 90s and just becoming a full-time resident. And when I looked through this budget, I have to admit I was a little surprised at the extreme level of capital investment. Is this part of the long-range plan that's already laid out? Or is this just a list of here's what we think we need to do this year and in the next year or so? So when you're doing your discussion later, I would ask if you could please address that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, once I close the public comment, we won't be taking input from the audience anymore. So again, I ask, is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I'll add something. I didn't get a chance to look at my name is Corey Ramsey, head of the Glen Apartments up here. I lived in Sister Bay now for about 4 years. And the Glen raises our rent about $150 every year. Now it's up to this December, it'll be $1,570. I do work for the Parks Department. I just started this spring. My concerns are, as a father, sorry, I'm really bad at public speaking. I'm a little nervous. I'm a husband and father of 2 little girls. My paycheck barely covers that rent. So then we have to bounce back one way or another. I know it's kind of a personal problem, but every year it goes up and it's due to the increase of taxes. And I'm just a little worried. Am I gonna be able to live here? Am I gonna be able to raise my daughters in Sister Bay or even in Door County? Just a nobody, small guy standpoint.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Sally Piper again. Just in response to Dick's question on the employing someone on the zoning enforcement, maybe you could expand upon that. I know it has something to do with short-term rentals, and unfortunately in our neighborhood, we have some problems with that. So is that the main focus of that job, or are there other things that job is being asked to do, and who's doing that right now? And do other villages co-op on any sort of enforcement on that? That's just a thought, maybe some explanation on that job.
Yes,
Nate, I think my impression is that expenditure includes software to buy for that individual to use to track the short-term rentals, and I would just ask if the village has been in any communication with the Door County Tourism Zone and in talks with them about any software they use or how they use it or whatever, because I think there'll be some redundancies. And I don't see I think that maybe there could be some savings for the village, because the Door County Tourism Zone does the same thing.
anyone else? Yes,
Thanks, Eagleman, and I just would like a clarification on where it came from that is hiring a staff person for the rentals would be helpful. Because I attended the meeting, maybe 6 months ago now, about STR and rentals. And it seemed as though the village had done a pretty good job in establishing rules of compliance and consequences if they were not adhered to. So something must have changed or gotten worse. I would just like to hear more when that topic is brought up about what brought the change of hiring someone, because at that time, I didn't get any sense that people were thinking that was necessary.
okay. Yep, is there anyone else? Okay. One last call out there. All right, at 6:22 PM, I'd like to close the public hearing. And let's have some discussion up here and address some of the questions that were brought up. First thing I think we should talk about is that STR enforcement. That STR enforcement came from a compromise of sorts that happened at the board level back in, was that June, Julie?
Yes.
Yeah, that was to raise the fees on STRs, and that money that is raised by those STRs has to go towards administering the STRs. So that's where that money for that enforcement agent is. I'm not sure where the software is at that. I know that I brought up using the DCTZ, and there's been some hesitation on there because it doesn't exactly line up. But I guess,
I can comment on that.
yeah.
Sure, I've had several conversations with the Door County Tourism Zone Commission. It's a totally different process. It's a totally different application. So the Door County Tourism Zone Commission is taking some very basic information for a permit. They do not enforce our codes. Our code is very comprehensive. It asks a lot more information than the Door County Tourism Zone Commission. So they're two totally different processes. So we weren't able to, the tourism zone didn't know how they would be able to. They could take general information, they could make sure they had a permit from the tourism zone, they could make sure that they had their DACAP license, but they didn't have the ability to then enforce individual ordinances. Because there were several communities that were saying, hey, is there any way Door County Tourism Zone can do this? So that was not feasible. It was not possible unless we went with a very stripped down, simply fill out the form, meet the requirements, you get the permit. So it didn't work in those conversations with them.
Okay. But it's not in a reaction to something that's happened since June that this has come up. This was the course that was set back in June when the STR ordinance was put in place.
I will also say that's a wash program. The money coming in pays for the position in the software, so it should not be a burden on the taxpayers. The revenues you take will pay for the cost of that program. That should not affect it whatsoever.
And it seemed like the community who, the people who, or the neighbors who didn't like the short-term rentals, we thought this would be a way to appease those people by enforcing the rules and making sure the garbage cans are back and making sure there's no parties and neighbors don't have to be telling on, you know, neighbors. It takes the burdens off the neighbors to have the enforcement official. And we thought, in terms of parking, wouldn't they maybe enforce other things like parking, overnight parking, RVs parking on the street, camping in the marina parking lot?
Right, we had originally discussed sharing a law, and there was a comment about, do we share with other communities? We originally did discuss sharing a law enforcement officer with Gibraltar to see if that would be the best route, and the majority of the board had said no, they would prefer to go this route with the compliance officer.
Then I guess I'd appreciate Tasha if you'd comment on the questions about the debt service fund.
Okay. So in regards to the debt service fund. We are looking at some new debt for. Let me get there and then I will turn and speak to the audience here. There is some new debt that we are looking at putting on our books. This is debt that has been planned for a number of years. We have seen some major projects that we have put off for a number of years, and we're getting to the point where we really can't put them off much longer. For instance, loan number 65 will probably become a debt issuance prior to the end of the year. That is for the broadband infrastructure. Loan number 66 is a construction loan for the Wiltsey infrastructure. So what we would do is take out a short-term funding loan that we could draw on that, keep the interest down as much as possible. And then refinance that loan into loan number 67 before the end of 2024. So that is where you're seeing that issuance. And then you're also seeing in this 2024 budget, a finalized loan for that broadband infrastructure. We are doing the same thing in both cases because we can draw on those loans. The Wiltsey infrastructure and the public works building is combined into one funding, so that those projects are completed at the same time. If one project is a little more or one project is a little less, we don't have to adhere so strictly to each individual loan's limits. We can kind of go back and forth between those amounts while staying under the budget entirely. The reason we are not paying a principal payment is to do our best to keep the tax rate low and to keep the tax rate steady. The tax rate will remain with this debt service issuance at the same level forecasted for the next, what would be 10 years or more. So we are able to do this within this existing levy, within this level that's budgeted.
And I'd just like to comment on the broadband. So, you know, in talking with different people and looking at the data, some people are paying between their satellite dishes or the service they're getting, plus the added internet packages on their phone. Sometimes they are paying $300 a month for internet and television. With the broadband program, the Cadillac version is $99, so that's a $200 if you take advantage of that, which not everybody will, and not everyone's in the same situation. So I'm just using this as an example, but that ends up giving you a personal savings of $200 a month. So that's $2,400 a year. So if your taxes went up $2,400 or less, you have a wash right there. You're saving it monthly, but yes, you are paying it at the end of the year.
Nate, may I ask just one clarification on Tasha about loan 67?
Yeah.
Actually, could you break out and tell us what the public works building is budgeted for, please?
So the public works building at this point is looking at about $4 million. But again, these two loans are being funded together.
Actually, I just wanted to know what public works was separately.
And that project has not been bid. That's not a final amount. That's, there's negotiations to happen and a lot of design work to happen, yeah.
The administration building isn't in here?
No, the administration building is not, I don't know if I'm supposed to just respond or.
We should be taking more questions.
Right.
We're gonna have to.
It's on the
That's why I'm
list to
looking
get
at you
to.
guys.
Yeah.
Didn't want to be.
I can go into future debt service. We have worked with our financial advisors who are Robert Baird to look at this debt service. When I talk about the levy for debt not changing over the next 10 years, that also includes the administration building, and it also includes some additional road work. So all of those projects can be done with debt in the coming years at this level.
You want me to comment on the leaf pickup?
Let's address the capital plan. I think there was a question alluding to the capital plan.
Sure. Would like to, I guess I will address the capital plan and the budget kind of timeline together. So the budget is monitored and evaluated throughout the entire year. The staff is constantly looking at it, constantly going back to it, constantly planning for the next year. We are working on it year round, but the bulk of our work begins in May. That's when we start rolling the year forward. That's when typically we get preliminary assessed values. That's when we start really working on things, including the capital plan and moving that forward. We do have a 5-year CIP plan. We've had that for a couple of years now. We hold several staff meetings between May and July between the finance director and the department heads about the budget and planning CIP. In addition, the department heads begin discussing CIP and budget items with the committees in June and July. The committees discuss CIP several times before the final report is issued. For instance, it was discussed at July, August, and September, and then the October board meeting. So it's discussed a number of times. The finance director also works with the finance committee to plan out the budget calendar starting in June. In August, the first meetings are typically held with personnel and finance committees. In September, the department heads bring their budgets to the committees, their final proposals to the committees for review and recommendation. By this time, committees have already discussed the major expenditures through the CIP discussions. The finance committee also begins reviewing the budget in September and holds several meetings reviewing all line items of the budget. By October, typically the budget is pretty finalized. The Board of Trustees reviews the budget in October and the budget would be reviewed in November. This budget timeline is very typical of all communities in Wisconsin. And it's the process that was followed for this budget. Staff requested 2 additional items that were added to the process this year. One was a finance committee meeting in August in which we specifically discussed the assessed value, the tax rate, and the debt levy. And then we also added a budget workshop with the full board in order to review the budget and make final changes at the October meeting. Staff requested the first step, that discussion about assessed value and tax levy because of the significant change in the assessment. And as a result of the number and size of projects being included in this budget. The second step was requested in order to improve the process and follow budgeting best practices. The workshop was designed to make sure that everyone was aware of everything that is in this budget, make final changes so we have a product that we can propose to the taxpayers of the village. That hopefully should answer your CIP process question and any budgeting process questions.
Nate, can I just add one thing to that? The, Vivian, you had a comment about, you know, the departments asking for stuff and somebody did about, you know, they seem to get whatever they ask. I will say this, that since we're working on their budget in June, when they started that process, they were all told that they had to keep it within a certain percentage, 3%. They did. As a matter of fact, they actually, some of them, when they brought it to the committee, it was even reduced even further. So the department budgets were in line with what was allowed.
In addition to that, when we talk about, you know, department head meetings and that kind of stuff, we are already cutting before it's proposed to committees. So we're already looking at that tax value and are we meeting our goals? Are we fulfilling the needs? Do we really need this item or can this wait? So when staff proposes those things, we feel confident that those are needs of the village.
Gotcha. You want to address the leaf collection?
Sure, I'll address the leaf collection. Meg, we can't, or just for the general public, we wouldn't be able to add that to this budget right now, because what we would have to do is we would have to contact Wayne Garbage, see if they provide that service and what it would cost. So there's a lot of research involved in that. We'd have to amend the contract. We just entered into a contract with them, so we'd have to see if we could revise it. We'd also want to do a little research on what neighboring communities are paying or how they're getting rid of their leaves. So it's something that we can definitely put on our work list to research, to look into. But we wouldn't be able to add that to the budget right now because we just don't have the numbers or the data. Whenever we add something, we do try to do as much thorough research on it as possible. We also try to look at different bids to make sure we're getting the lowest price for that service. But we'll certainly work on, if the committee is okay with that, the park committee, I'll put it on their agenda. Or if the chair lets me, I'll put it on the agenda, and then we'll look into that.
Thank you.
I think it's a great idea.
Would be the best one to answer Dick's question concern on the utilities.
Oh, I can answer that. I've been doing this for like 26 years and the increases we have had just started a little bit before COVID. Have been astronomical prices that I have never seen. I mean, we used to get 5 gallons of, we call it sodium hypo, for less than $20. Now it's like 70. I could get a tanker of ferric, which is used for treating wastewater, right around 38 to 4 grand for a tanker. I think our last one was 13 or 14,000. I mean, these prices are, I would have, if you'd have told me this 20 years ago, I would have been shocked. I've called other places, I'm talking to people, what can we do? And it's really, we have to pay it. We have to disinfect the water, we have to treat it. Energy too is one up. If you look on the graph, you'll see the fixed cost and supplies. It's really, to a degree, out of our control. The last tanker load I got did not go up, but for the last, every quarter when we purchased, I would just see $1,000 added. Supplies for labs, still HOC has a 10% COVID charge. Everybody just kind of increased and nobody's really decreased after this thing completed. All the disinfectants are just at that price, we can't really do anything.
And also to add to that, the utility is looking at some capital projects. We are looking at doing within reserves, within whatever fund.
Rid of rebuild.
In order to, reduce other prices, for instance, sludge hauling. Sludge hauling is rising so fast and so out of control, and we are being cut off by the city of Sturgeon Bay earlier than we planned. And that means it causes issues for us. It may cause us to haul all the way to Green Bay, which is an incredibly significant expense. That expense alone has more than doubled just this year. We are looking at putting in something at the treatment plant so that we can process our own sludge, so that we can process for other municipalities in the area, and we will charge them for that service. So we are looking at ways to reduce the cost. We are running the numbers and we are trying to do it within the means that we currently have. Yes. No, sorry, that's not my fault.
And it's not just Sister Bay, that's Liberty Grove included, because everybody's waste comes all the way up to Gills Rock, all comes to Sister Bay. So don't think when you hear those prices or those gallons that it's just Sister Bay. It's all of northern Door County that we have to take care of, and that costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of extra gallons that we have to deal with. So, not just here. How many homes have they built in Liberty Grove in the last 5 years? Count it up. Everybody's gotta have their septic tank pumped every 3 years. Count it up. A lot of gallons.
Dan, something you've addressed at other times is needing additional capacity and where we're at, when there's further expansion in the village, where does?
We're in pretty good shape. We really are. We have a ring system and we have room for expansion. We are in good shape. The biggest thing that we need to look at, and possibly we can even get a grant for, is if we started treating our own sludge, that would reduce our costs and we could start making money. And in a small way, Megan, this year, we started doing our own drinking water samples, so we're not paying the cost of sending them out. We took care of all the wells in the area and we actually paid for our supplies, so that way it was a wash this year in that one instance. And that can be maybe 5 to 7 years. You will see payback if we do like a Milorganite or something. Possibly can sell it. I mean, there are options that we can slow this down. And hopefully, I really think chemical prices have peaked. I don't know if they'll pull back, but hopefully they at least level out.
What about as capacity for like wells and for treatment? How are we?
Oh, we're good, in pretty good shape. The only thing that we will in the future need is some additional storage and also some areas where we have on the ridges and stuff, we may want to look at booster pumps, how we are going to maintain pressure throughout the system. But the 3 wells all have good capacity. They're not even running at full capacity. I think a couple of them can go up a couple 100 gallons more. So we're not bad for drinking water at all.
Okay. All right.
Landlord question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Corey had commented on, the landlords raise the rent, pay the taxes. I think a lot of them do definitely. I think a lot of them have just continually raised it after the COVID freeze was over, whether the taxes went up or not. What we're hearing reported to us is they still continued to raise those taxes. We have one apartment building, which we believed was going to be a low income one. We know this past year, they raised the rent 3 times in summer. So, that is one of the reasons why we have the interest in the Wiltsey project, to make sure that we can invest money to provide homes for these people so they can actually have a better quality of life, stay here and work here. So there is gonna have to be some investment in the Wiltsey property to provide the homes, to get people in a situation where they do have that expendable money to go and spend it in the community versus just on their rent.
And we're talking about affordable homes. We are working. We're coming up with all the ideas that we can, and we are doing a housing analysis in order to come up with affordable housing, truly affordable housing for families and for residents of Sister Bay. So I don't know if you want to put in, a shameless plug or anything for.
I can put in a shameless plug. On December 9th, we are having a meeting for anyone who's interested in, if you work and you're interested in owning a home in Sister Bay, we're having a public input session for them to come and say, this is how many bedrooms I need. Thank you. Yes.
Is it also for businesses in situation?
So it's twofold. So the first part is for people who think they might want to own a home here. We know what the data shows us, but we need questions from the users. Like, do you think you would need down payment assistance? Would you be willing to do a land contract if you couldn't get a conventional mortgage? Some things like that, which help us know which type of grant funding to go after and how to structure the program. The second half of that December 9th event is for the businesses. We have ideas on how businesses can provide housing for their employees. So it's asking the businesses, what are you willing to spend? Are you willing to look at this model, etc.? A lot of this is all grant funded. We're doing what we can with it. And hopefully we get to the point where landlords realize people have options and maybe they don't keep raising the rents.
Another thing that we are looking at with the affordable housing and the Wiltsey infrastructure and that kind of thing is if it's a possibility for us to expand one of our TIF districts to encompass that area. There is a state rule that somewhat prohibits what we want to do. But if we can find a way to get that to happen, we want that to happen because that means that anything that is built out there comes back to the village and we can use that to flow back into, an affordable housing or to pay off that debt.
I wouldn't say that the state prohibits it, it just makes it so we have to really be
Yeah.
very precise on it.
Yeah, there isn't an affordable housing TIF district. That's not a thing. So.
Okay, I guess I should come to Ken's comments. Ken, I did mean it when I said I'm glad you're here tonight. I appreciate all input. And I had a pretty good idea of what you're gonna say, and I still mean that. I also want to comment that Vivian and Keith, I noticed you were on one of the budget meetings, and I have not forgot that, so we do pay attention. And public input is important. I would comment on the bike racks that we have spent so much money on car parking for so many years. That would be my argument for it. Could that be reduced some? Sure, but I don't think it should be cut out there. But the other thing that you said there, Ken, is that 12% increase. Yeah, that's a lot. That's not, when we first had that meeting in August. This is my first go at it. And I'll tell you, I've got a lot to learn, and I'm trying to learn as fast as I can. It's not incredibly clear how that mill rate set in August ends up being baked on. And that's even a conversation we had at that time, saying, well, you don't know what it's gonna be until you get the valuations and everything else cooked out there. I'm personally not entirely comfortable with this budget. I can't say I think that you're wrong, Ken.
That doesn't change the bottom line though, admitting that I'm right on things.
I understand. I'm starting somewhere here.
Yeah, okay.
We're far along in this process. And I understand that at this point, we've got a choice to say, okay, we want to pass this budget as it is tonight, or Tasha, if we amend it much at all, we've got to take it back to public hearing. We've got to do a whole lot of contortions and a whole lot of work.
If you amend the budget tonight, that changes the tax levy. You
Okay.
have to republish this budget, you have to go back and do another public hearing, and you have to go through the process again, and you have to complete that no later than December 15th. You must pass a budget by December 15th. At the very, very latest. And by very, very latest, that means if you would set it December 15th, that also means that we will be in violation of a number of reports for the state, because we won't file them on time.
Okay. I'm just laying out there what this
Yeah.
means. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. Guess I'd like to.
I'd like to take a comment.
You still have a question?
I was-
If you still have a question, I'll.
Yeah, I was
please
gonna say-
jump in there.
I was gonna say, the other one I still have on my list is SBAA.
Okay.
Tasha, do you want to clarify
Sure.
Louise's comments about the parks fund and?
Sure, so the SBA, Louise is right in that the SBA receives 12% of the village's 30% share of room tax. That is in that other culture and rec, which she alluded to. She's correct that the support that the SBA receives in 2023 is 57,483. The projected support, budgeted support for that the Sister Bay Advancement Association will receive in 2024 is 63,728. That's an increase of a little over $7,904. The other funds within that SBAA support are supplies and expenses of time and benefits that our staff put in towards SBAA events. We do not charge the SBAA for those events. That's part of the contract, part of the deal. Would you like me to go any further into SBA?
I mean, I think that
I just
that's,
wonder why it went from 16,000 to 25,000.
I think
I'm
that
not
that's,
sure where you're getting 16,000 from.
The 2022 budget is 73,908. We actually received 57,483. The difference is 16,420.
That is how much, almost entirely, how much time our staff
I got
spend for Fall Fest.
I understand.
You know, a lot of other, okay, I don't wanna,
Let me
I don't
just- let
wanna
me
back
just-
and forth,
let me just,
but a lot of other business organizations are charged by the municipality for the staff
I got no
time
problem
and
with
the
that.
staff
I
supplies.
just don't know why.
what this comes down to is what the village is expending for SBA, we're putting that as saying that's a contribution to SBA, just to make that clear. So that's,
fine with that. I just didn't understand why it went up
Okay.
54% in a year.
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, let's start with our remote members, because it's kind of harder to, for them
Don,
to-
did you have any comments? We can't hear you yet.
No,
There's no volume on your end. Do you want to try logging off and logging back in?
or maybe logging on his phone.
Why don't we give, Sarah, if you're here, do you want to, you have anything to chime in on?
Do you mean just as a whole chime in?
Yeah.
I mean, I think these comments are really helpful to hear. I think that we have, and I'm going back to some of the comments at the beginning of the meeting. I think we have spent a lot of time as a group and in many smaller committee meetings working through this budget really, really thoughtfully. I think we've made some significant cuts over the last 5 months as this budget has been developed. I do recognize that there are some significant capital investments in the future. We're also growing as a community, not only in Sister Bay, but across Door County. And I think some of the budget reflects that infrastructure development that I think we've been talking about for many years. So I do think that we have tried to be really responsive to the growth that's happening. I also think we are trying to be really intentional about our workforce and making sure that we are committing to our workforce, supporting our workforce. So I think that is reflected in the budget. I don't know if we have everything right, so I understand some of your comments, Nate. But I think we've given it a really good shot. I'm really supportive of the budget and all of the work that's gone into it. And I just want to say thank you to Tasha and Heidi and our whole team, really. I'm really impressed with how this has come together. I think we've had a lot of good conversations. And I do think that we have sacrificed some and made some cuts. So I'm personally very supportive of the budget as it stands today.
Don, are you on via
Hi.
phone now?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
We got you.
Okay, I didn't hear everything Sarah said. I just heard the end of it. But yeah, I would agree that, listen, we worked this for months and we didn't just give a wish list to every department for everything they asked for. They went back, they cut. So this is a result of, I think, a lot of due diligence. Not everybody's going to be happy with the results. You know, we've got a village of 1,000 people, and I know there's a handful in the room right now that spoke up tonight, and I appreciate everything that's been said. We represent everybody, and obviously there must be people who are okay with what they read in the Pulse and okay with the budget that we're setting. We voted to approve this budget in finance. We moved it to board. Board voted to approve it, and here we are today. So other than, you know, saying that we are spending willy-nilly on wishful projects, I didn't hear a lot today that would change my mind that this budget should go forward. The only thing I would say is if some of the capital projects are bothering people, I appreciate that as well. We've got a lot of infrastructure to build in this village because it's been ignored for too many decades. There's buildings that aren't safe to work in, and we're addressing that, and that costs money. And if it all is happening right now and it seems like too much, that's something to discuss, but we're not spending on all of it next year. It comes in the next few years. But anyway, that's a long-winded way to say that the budget was worked on. There was a lot of public hearings, a lot of public sessions, and not everybody got what they wanted, but I think this is a good workable budget.
Okay. Those members in the room?
Okay, you want to,
That's okay.
all right. Just kind of going back to what Sarah and Don commented, first of all, thanks to everybody that's here, everyone that commented, we really do appreciate your comments. But yeah, like everyone, or like they've said, we have been working on this budget for months. It was revised by committee, by the board many times. We did make some significant cuts to it. This was put back in August, September.
August, September.
Yeah, we made some
absolutely.
significant cuts to it. Sister Bay is growing, that's a reality. Development is we can't help it, right? The infrastructure that we're looking into is, we consider it to be beneficial for our local community for the most part. Like Dan said, everything has gone up so much too, and we all know the cost of living has gone up so much. So when we're talking about infrastructure, I mean, the cost of building, even a simple building has gone up so much. Everything has. And that's something we can't control, right? So I do feel like we revised this budget as best we could. I, like Nate, don't feel 100% comfortable with a few things on here, but I think as a board, we had to agree to disagree on a few things, on some cuts that were or were not made. We don't all always agree 100% on everything. But yeah, I mean, Sister Bay is growing, that's a reality, and we need this infrastructure that we are working on that like I said, our main focus is to benefit our local community and, and to accommodate our tourist community, because they are part of our community too. So that's, I feel like we've worked long and hard on this budget to get to where we are right now.
Please.
First of all, I'm not on the finance committee, and none of my committees that I'm on works with any of the budgets things. So I'm kind of new to seeing what the budget's looking like.
Let me just say, I can appreciate that, Patrice, because I was in the same boat.
Yeah, right, so.
I know you can still be heavily involved in the
At the
board, but
last,
still not
yeah,
in the.
at the last meeting, when we talked about the budget, and that was the first time I saw it, Denise had made a remark that she was uncomfortable with the 12% increase, and that we should have at least $120,000 cut from the budget, which I am on board with. I agree with that. I mentioned that it was a Zoom meeting. I said, I'm inclined to agree with Denise. A motion was made and it was carried, and that's why we're reviewing it tonight, and it went forward. My personal thoughts on this, and I know some people will not like this, and I might not make very many friends when I say this, but, I think we should have a 6 to 8% increase in our budget. That would be much more palatable for our year-round residents here. There are areas that I believe that we could cut back on. I think we want the whole pie, and I don't think that's fiscally responsible. I love bikes, but bike racks, $12,000, that seems a lot of money. It seems like it could wait a year or two. The seasonal decorations, $26,000, that seems like they're nice. I love them. Everybody loves them, but it's expensive. And, do we actually have to have them? Is it that important? How bad would it be if we didn't have it this year? I'm sorry to say this, but, the increased support for the, Sister Bay Advancement Association, they are a nonprofit. They should be supported by the businesses in Sister Bay, not the taxpayers. Just like the Lions Club, we don't support them, we have 4 fireworks celebrations in Sister Bay in a year. 4, do we need 4?
You don't do them, I don't know.
I mean, really, look at even the other communities. They don't don't have 4 fireworks celebrations. And I know those are very expensive. Am I right about that? They're expensive.
I don't know, the village pays for them, we don't do them.
Well, we should, there you go. Why are we paying for these 4 fireworks?
No, ask the village.
Yeah, it seems quite like, you know, not being responsible with our money. That is about it on the cuts. I am totally on board with infrastructure. We need to improve our roads. We need to fix Mill Road. It's terrible. We need to have the capital funds and all the stuff for the future. When we need a new administration building down the road, we need to fix that maintenance building and get a new one, that $4 million project. Yes, I'm on board with all of that. But there's extra things that I think we could look long and hard at the budget. And I know this is far along in the process, and I know Tasha has worked so hard on this, but being that it was new to me, I was kind of out of the loop on this, and I was not totally, happy with the way it was looking. So I can't support the 12% increase.
Thanks, Patrice.
I agree, 12% is a lot, and I think we can look next year to increase much less. I think, Julie, did you say each committee had about a 3% to look at the beginning of the year? So maybe next year we can all look at 2.75% or 2.5%. Maybe we can start working with smaller numbers so our dreams aren't as big. And I don't know, we could go maybe try to start smaller next year, but I agree, we've hashed all these things out. It's a lot of projects that have been put on hold for too long, and they just all came to fruition this year. I would love to add something like leaf service. Again, that's another cost. I don't know where we find this money, but I think that's a great idea. I never know what to do with the leaves. But yes, we are growing, and we do need some new buildings. A lot of things are falling apart. I do not want rents to rise in all the apartments. I'm a little upset that not all these apartments, but many of the apartments are charging so much. When I heard how much they were charging earlier this year, I was amazed that we allow these apartments to go in, but then I was told people can do what they want with private property. So I'm glad that we might be able to come up with some affordable housing, even though we have some money in there for the infrastructure. I was pushing to get the infrastructure of the Wiltsey down because I thought that was a big expense, but I do see that we do need affordable housing. So we all look for places to cut, and we tried at the last meeting to cut what we could, and this is what we ended up with. And maybe I'm hoping next year we can spend less money. But I am supportive of what we have now because we've worked so hard.
Gotcha.
I was just gonna respond to a couple of Patrice's comments. First of all, on the seasonal decorations. We do have $10,000 in the budget for new seasonal decorations. Typically that replaces trees. It replaces lights for the tunnel, that kind of thing. There is also 25,000 budgeted to upgrade electrical. We had some areas where our employees were literally being shocked while they were stringing lights or while they were repairing lights or that kind of thing. So there is a cost there, but that cost is a safety cost. That cost needs to happen regardless.
There was reduced, I believe, by $10,000.
Right, the new lights were reduced by $10,000. The fireworks, the village pays for 2 displays. And maybe is that Don?
Sorry, that's Don's phone.
Does Don want to, he did, okay. The village pays for 2 display of the year. The budget for actual fireworks is $8,000 for fireworks. The rest of that $12,000 is for staff time to put that together, for contracted services for the barge that they can be lit off from, or the trailer that they're lit off from. And so that's the total cost. In regards to the SBAA, if you want to change funding to the SBAA,
There's some state statutes involved in that.
well. So a couple of years ago, when the room tax change occurred, and when the room tax change was being brought about, the room tax was being changed in part, and the SCP funding, which is funding that comes from the DDC, was being, the funding model was changing so that it could cover the funding for the business associations. The village at that time chose to go from a 3-year contract to a 1-year contract because we weren't sure how that funding for the SBA would work out for them. We wanted to make sure that they were funded, and we put in that contract of fill the gap. And I believe the contract actually says in quotes, fill the gap funding measure. The following year, the SBA came back to the village and asked for 12% of the room tax. This was granted, and that's what we still are operating under. The increase in support to the SBA from the village has risen from $32,349 in 2022 to $63,728 in 2024, which is another $7,904 increase from 2023. In addition to that, the SBA receives SCP funds from the DDC. Those funds increased from $46,739 in 2021 to $123,134 in 2022, and the budget of $138,690 in 2023, $46,000 to $138,000. The SCP funds are tied to the percentage of room tax collection. So that's a funding increase of $91,951 to the SBA in 3 years just from SCP funds. Meanwhile, the change in membership dues has remained relatively unchanged from 2021 till now. $37,230 in 21, $37,766 in 22, and the budget of $39,500 in 23. So the SBA is a business organization that relies incredibly heavily on taxpayer support. SBA's total revenues in 2021 were $263,995. The budget in 2023 is $334,790, an increase of $70,795 in 2 years.
So
The
I
SCP
want to chime in on here. We refer to SBA as a business association. I would say that, so I was at a conference this May with a lot of, it's called Strong Towns. It's small towns, small cities that get together. Something that became incredibly apparent to me at that was how much SBA is a community organization as much as it is the business organization that is a void that is in so many small towns and villages out there. So I understand that's what they technically are, but I feel obliged to insert that.
Yeah, and I understand that. I'm not here disparaging the SBA. I think the SBA is incredibly valuable. What I am saying is that the taxpayer, the funding model has changed. And they are being funded by SCP funds from the DDC. It was covering what the village was funding. And now we continue to fund more. That $63,000 could be used for debt service, could be used for capital, could be used for infrastructure, could be used for something else. It's simply a consideration. If you want to know all the numbers, that's the numbers.
So I'm not allowed to respond. I didn't know that this would be.
Unfortunately, Louisa, we can't go back and forth with this.
But had I known this clearly, Tasha was very well prepared because I see it's all like typed up. So she knows exactly and she was prepared for that. And I'm very well prepared to speak at any moment. Not to mention the fact that in 2019, we got 73,000. So it's easy to look at numbers and compare them and make yourself look good. And you compare them to a number that was a lot less. When 6 years ago, we got significantly more.
I understand your position,
We
Louisa.
moved tax dollars because we helped put heads on beds. And by the way, the village, their increase in room tax, why don't you look at that total? Because it is significant. They get 30%. And we're asking 12% of that 30%.
I understand what you're saying, Luis, but at this point, we're not having a back and forth, so I'm gonna have to cut you.
I mean, I just being ambushed, sorry, I'm not gonna stand for that. So it'd be really great if a little respect for what we do.
You're not respecting them right now.
Clearly is not, because I don't feel respected.
Luis, if you want to be an agenda item on the next board meeting, I can certainly put you on.
That's fine.
I think Tasha was just responding to Patrice's comments.
No, she alluded to the fact that is asking the board to cut. To avoid our contract, so that's what I told.
I don't think Tasha wants anything cut right now because I don't think she
I
wants to
don't,
reduce the
I
budget.
don't want anything cut. I don't want anything cut, but I have an entire list of options if that's how this meeting went. So, and, you know, that's the only one that has to do with the SBA. I was responding to Patrice's comment.
Can I comment something? I don't really feel like any of us, the board, feel that way about SBA. I personally don't. I really do appreciate all the work that SBA does. We would not have the wonderful events we do throughout our village, and I have to be honest, I attend every event that they put together, and a lot of the people I see at these events are local. And I just want to say, I really appreciate the job that SBA does. And I'm in full support of funding that we have been doing all these years to keep this going.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Okay. So it sounds like we have general consensus that wants to go ahead with this budget. I personally, the one thing that kind of sticks at me that I really wonder about is looking at the capital funding amounts. And there's a number of projects that we've already committed to, that we've already signed contracts for, that we really can't do anything about if we wanted to. I mean, without putting ourselves in an even worse position. It's hard to, after hearing the kind of what I suspected I might hear tonight, although I was keeping an open mind to whatever anybody might say. $4 million for a parks building is still kind of, that one sits with me and kind of hits me a little off, but at the same point, this is a democracy. If the majority of the board wants to go ahead with this, then we should. I don't know if there's any further discussion that the board members like to have.
Well, if we don't go ahead with the $4 million for the maintenance building or whatever, the price keeps going up.
Could we do something less than $4 million?
Yeah.
Could we do something
Yeah.
for 3 million, or could we do something for 2.5
Yeah.
million? I
I'm
mean,
for
I'm not saying don't do it, but is that the number that's?
Yeah.
'Cause it-
I will say this, that 4 million is a safety net. We're definitely hoping it comes in way below that. But worst case scenario, at least the money is there.
Because of the way we are doing the funding, because of the two-step funding, the construction draw and then the final funding. We have the option to not take out a full 7.5 million if that's not the price tag at the end of this. That it's designed that way so that we have options going forward.
So that we can mitigate that service moving forward if we're judicious with that project.
I think I asked that question when we were at the last meeting. I thought
Yeah.
it was smoothly high, and that was the answer. We got that it was just a safety net
Yeah. You are also replacing 2 buildings up there.
and taking down one. Or 2.
So Nate, what happens now? Do we need to make a motion to
Yeah, I mean,
approve?
there's. Personally, I'd really like to take another stab at this. I know Tasha really doesn't want that. But I don't know that, it's hard to say exactly what we're gonna cut out of there, but it's possible. That's my inclination. I don't think that's what the rest of the board thinks, though.
But Nate, I thought we were going around
Nate,
and
if
all
you-
of us. Yeah, I thought each of us was kind of saying if we're comfortable or not. Did we?
I
Did
mean,
we pause?
I guess I heard general consensus there. Maybe I could be off.
And I feel like we tried to
Yeah,
cut
you-
at the last meeting. And we just.
Yeah,
we
felt
did.
like- Oh, you weren't
Okay.
there.
I was not here.
Yeah, the last meeting
Yeah.
we tried cutting
Uh,
as much.
Okay.
We did, yeah.
Well, then I mean. A motion would be in order then, Don.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve the budget as presented.
You would need to make a motion to approve resolution 2023-019, adopting the 2024 budget. So the motion.
All right, I didn't write all that. I didn't write all that down, so somebody else have to make that has a pen and paper.
Okay, motion by Cox,
Well, second.
second by White. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Sarah, didn't hear you.
Aye.
Opposed?
no,
No? Motion carries.
No,
No,
motion
it
does not
doesn't.
carry.
No, the budget failed
Budget,
The budget fails. You need 3/4
we need 3/4?
of the board.
of the board, and without Denise here, without her vote, you don't know. You don't have 5.
Okay. Then I wanna. We can start reviewing this tonight where we review that, Tasha, or do we?
I
get
think
another-
that would be a good idea, because you're running out of time.
Let's go.
To start reviewing it when? I think what happens is this. I think, Nate, if I might say, you voted for this budget twice and approved it twice, and now you said tonight, I don't know why. I don't know if there's some pandering going on to the local audience that's there, or something's not sitting right with you, but you voted for this budget twice.
I understand that, Don. I am very well aware of that. This is,
Yep.
this is where
I
I'm at.
understand it too. So,
What,
Clarification, this is not my own question, but just,
Okay,
they
that-
talked about the zoning position
yes,
as being budget neutral. Is it budget neutral in the budget? Or is it shown as an expense because the revenue hasn't been placed yet?
No, the revenue is there. The revenue is in the line item of licenses and permits.
So it is a budget neutral.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Without that position, you will continue to have staff do their best to meet those needs. You know, you could allocate the time there, but either way. The reason that this position is being proposed is because those short-term rentals and those zoning matters, those compliance matters are that much effort for staff. That it's taking away staff time from accomplishing other things.
yeah.
I felt like that was our way of appeasing everybody who is unhappy with the short-term rentals.
That won't have a.
yes, it was,
They'll allow us to enforce some of those rules.
Yeah, I don't think we can get rid of
More
that without
efficient.
making other people unhappy.
So I guess I'll start with the bike racks.
So the bike racks are $12,200. Or
great
$12,000.
great. I'll say no more Christmas decorations.
Okay,
Okay,
I can address that second. Let's start with the bike racks. The bike racks are $12,000. There are 6 on order at this time. We have not received them yet, nor have we placed them yet.
is that
If
2020?
you cut 12,000, you would be placing the 12,000, you would be placing this year's bike racks for use next year. You may have the chance to, you know, review and decide, is this adequate? Are the 6 enough, or do we need 6 more?
Okay, let's start there. So that's one.
But are they arriving?
They are arriving, yeah.
We just aren't gonna use them, or we're gonna pay for them next year?
Well, we can't concrete them in this year anymore. I mean, they've been on order since, what, June, till May? It's been a long time.
It takes a long time to get them
It
because
takes
they
a
are
long time to get
custom racks, but they're coming.
Yeah.
So by cutting them, we're just taking numbers.
No,
out of
no. We're talking about another $12,000 in bike racks, so another 6 is in the budget for next year. So by cutting them, you are not getting rid of the current order. You will have 6 to place for next year. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that sounds good.
What else you got, Tasha?
The Bay Shore, okay, Christmas decorations, that was the next one that was discussed. I will need Eric to chime in here on what he thinks he will need simply to replace the strands of lights for the, I believe it's been about $2,700 to $5,500 a year for the last couple of years for strings of lights. Just replacing the broken strings because of all the wind.
So I've been working on, pulling a lot of the older LED string lights out, replacing them with rope lighting. It's just more of a robust system that, seems to be more watertight and everything like that. I think I had a budget about $10,000 going into this year. I expended roughly, I want to say about 6,000 of that on replacement displays, and I'm also holding on to reserve funds going into the winter season of 4,000 for anything that might pop up. Moving forward, I would say, as far as more light replacement and getting those miniature LEDs out of the field and replacing with rope light, at $10,000 minimum, to give a buffer there is playing it safe. I mean, we could slow that process down and cut roughly 5 out of it. I know last year I was very aggressive in replacing a lot of the displays because I had $20,000 in it, which we chopped down to 10 to move into another location. And we could still maybe cut that 10 maybe down to 5 and, slowly but surely, we could maybe thin the herd a little bit. I don't know if the board wants less Christmas decorations out there, but that could also be a possibility. If something does burn out, we take it out of the field, we wait till the previous year where we have a little bit more money back in the budget and put it in, and then that string light replacement, we just chip away at that, as the years go on. So yeah, is there room to reduce? Absolutely. If we want to stay the present force at $10,000, and we want what's out there, needs to be out there type of thing, then yeah, 10 grand is probably gonna have to remain because a lot of those displays will run up into the prices of $4,000, $2,500 a click. And if you get 2 or 3 that burn out, or if you want 1 or 2 new ones, that's just the price you're gonna have to pay for Christmas.
Yep.
All right, I got 3 more. Let me know when you want them.
Let's set a number on that. So Eric, I heard you say taking it from 10 to 5. And. Okay, so and is everybody else good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, all right, I got 3 more. Ready?
Okay.
Tasha, you ready? All right, we were gonna do some, fix some equipment and add some stuff to the weight room in the fire department. I think it has to be cut. I don't know how much money that was, but let's take that out.
15,000.
The Little League field was gonna be clayed. I'm the coach. I run the Northern Door Little League or T-ball league, and 56 kids were out there. It's in terrible shape, but I'll rake it myself, take it out. That's 2. And then, we were gonna plant some flowers around it. We were gonna plant some flowers around the village and give some money to somebody to do that, and that has to come out too. So if everybody in the room's happy with those decisions, let me know. And then Nate, how much do we need to cut before you're actually willing to vote for this budget?
About 120,000.
120,000. So you want to get to the Denise? You want to get to the Denise Birdo number that she surprised the entire board with the other night, which had no relevance at all. That's the number you want to get to.
Don, I want to go through and pull what we can. We're gonna run out of things. I think that we just identified.
Well,
some
you
stuff
could have done it. You could have done that. Hey, you could have done that in
Oh, you're
finance.
right.
You could have
I
done
made a
that in the board
mistake,
meeting.
okay?
And all right, let's get through this then.
Yes, I
Okay.
agree, Tasha.
So information about the weight room equipment. The weight room equipment, this all was in the CIP. The weight room equipment is, most of it is original to back to 2002. The weight room equipment is breaking. It is not, there are no replacement parts. They have contacted manufacturers and the manufacturers have actually left because it is so old. So if we do not do it, it just means that you're putting it off another year. And if you want to cut 10,000, I'm fine with that. But I'm telling you, I'm giving you the information about it. The next one, reclaiming the Little League field. You know, the Pulse said it's 14,000. The actual number for reclaiming the Little League field is about 7. The rest of that is typical grounds maintenance for the sports complex. Okay, so $7,000 to reclaim the Little League field. My recollection is that in speaking with Eric and Dan about that field, the Little League field is low in spots. It is loose in, or is it loose or too compacted in spots or something like that? And it has not been reclaimed, to my knowledge, in ever, since it was originally put in. So my understanding is it is somewhat of a safety issue for the Little League players, and that's why it was kept in. And it was discussed at Parks, and this is the same explanation that's been given.
I wouldn't cut Little League because that's what our kids use, and if it's for safety purposes, we gotta get it done. I also coach sports in the summer and our sports complex is not in ideal shape. So I would not cut Little League.
Okay.
It wouldn't be my recommendation. I can get out there and rake. And I'll do the best I can to make sure the kids are safe as I did last year. So, and you here, throw this out there. Here's a couple more $1,000. You guys don't have to pay me to be on the board anymore. I'll still be on it and I'll do it for free. Write it down. And by the way, I think we actually increased some of the committee chairs' pay this year because we thought they were working too hard. I think we should take that back. And I think the committee chairs and the board members should earn what they were earning before. So no increases on the board. That's another recommendation.
You okay with that?
Okay, so regards to the flower pots, there was a $2,000 increase in the flower pot budget, and then there is also $1,000 that are thank yous to the flower pot ladies. So that's $3,000. That increase was made at the October 11th Finance Committee meeting.
I don't think we can figure our thank yous.
I think we.
It's 1,000, yeah.
The flower pots though, the additional flower pots, I think we can pull. Leave the thank yous, pull the additional pots we're at last minute.
The thing,
Leave the thank yous,
okay,
take the 2,000, that was the additional flower
What do
pots.
we, it was an additional flowers? What was the 2,000?
the 2,000 is for additional flowers.
Was the 1,000 additional?
I thought that was part
No, the 2,000 was additional. The $1,000 has been, is the same amount they spent this year to go,
And do we
to
spend that
go for
on,
their thank you.
is that for all our volunteers or just the flower pot?
Just the flower pot ladies.
We're- the hourly rate we end up getting is not a bad deal for.
So I don't, from
Ooh,
those 3 items, do you want to cut any of those? The weight room, the clay for the Little League field, and the flower pots?
Flower pots for sure.
Flower pots are
I wouldn't
making-
cut the clay for.
Okay, are we really talking about this, or should we look at a big number? Like, if you really want 120,000, are we gonna cut all these
If
little?
we, let's try and get there and see where we get to. Let's do something.
Cutting out thank yous for people and.
I'm
cutting
not
out
saying
flowers?
thank yous, I'm saying the additional flower pots. So this is not the flower pots, this is additional ones that we're adding on.
So.
We have till December 15th, and I think including myself, there's some emotions that are running high. Do we table this and have a meeting to actually do this? Because right now, we're just winging it. And she's right. We're picking it. We're picking $500 here, $1,000 there. We'll be here all night. If something big has to go, or something big has to go, or we have to pass this thing.
Could I make a recommendation? I mean, I think there were 4 committee members, I believe, who were supportive of the budget. So I would actually love to hear from a recommendation from those who do not agree with the budget. Because I am comfortable with where the budget's at. So I honestly would like Nate to hear from you on a recommendation. And if you're not ready today, then I agree we should table this.
I think that Tasha was prepared for this, like, she's not happy to be prepared for this, but she's prepared for it. She's got a list of things. I think we go through that list, we see where it ends up, and then let's go from there.
Okay. None of these are popular, so I'm just gonna preface it with that. The Bayshore Drive waste receptacles, this was something added by the Parks, Property and Streets Committee. The Parks, Property and Street, I would ask Julie to speak, because I wasn't actually at this meeting where it was proposed.
Sure, we had a citizen come forward and ask at the village, put a waste receptacle at their corner by their business. Apparently there was one years ago. And it led to a greater discussion on should these be up and down Bayshore Drive on different locations. Some on village property, some on private property for business. And, the decision was, the committee wanted to put $10,000 in the budget for waste receptacles to be placed up and down Bayshore Drive.
If you've got the $10,000, then you can also reduce some of the part-time wages for the Public Works Department. Because these barrels are along Bayshore Drive, it requires 2 people to empty them, because you have to have someone there for safety reasons, and you have to have someone there to empty them. So we could actually cut some of the part-time hours, probably the extra 336 hours, the extra small part-time staff person, and getting a nod from Erin. So that amount from the part-time public works budget is another $7,773. So in total, you're talking $17,773 for garbage cans along Bayshore Drive on public and private property.
I'm fine with that. We don't even have a garbage can we like. We can't find one that we like to put out there. We looked at garbage can
I'm
models.
fine with that as well.
Let's go with that.
All right.
We have a garbage.
We'll be the only village in America without garbage cans, but that's okay. Let's cut it.
We still have a garbage.
There's like none.
35. Okay,
I'm the only one who said I supported it. Does anybody else support it?
I mean, it's,
sorry, yeah.
I think that
sorry.
yeah,
And moved
that's
on
bad
too
idea.
fast. Are you in agreement?
Yes.
And
You
John
guys are in
doesn't like
agreement?
it.
To the
Yeah.
what? Trash
To
cans?
removing the
No.
trash cans?
No.
You're not.
I am, that's fine.
Wait, so-
I need direction
Okay.
from the chair then.
Don, Sarah?
What?
Remove trash
I'm-
cans, yes or no?
So
The garbage cans?
I'm uncomfortable with the approach that we're taking right now. Because I do feel like we're, again, I think we've been really thoughtful. I think it is the exercise I think would be more helpful to do is step back. Let's be thoughtful. Every single decision we're making does have a consequence. So it's hard for me right now to just, go line by line, picking out, the 10 things that stand out or 20 things or 100, however long we're gonna be here.
I understand that. What you are running out of is time. You have to have this budget ready to be published. It requires to be published 15 days prior to your next public hearing. You have to schedule that public hearing for December 15th, preferably much before, at least a week before it's December 15th. so we can make it recorded.
Natasha?
Yes.
Tasha? My question is, and it goes back to Nate and Patrice, I believe that this is a fair question. What's the number? What are we trying, before we start looking at what we should cut, what's the number? What's the magic number of cuts right now that would somehow make one of the two vote to approve a budget? Because remember, you're gonna have to do all the work and probably come back. I mean, this is gonna have to be published again, so we're not voting tonight on a new budget. What we're doing is trying to say, we're trying to appease some people who had an unease on a budget that we prepared. And I'd love to know how much cutting they would like to do tonight or whenever we get together again. I haven't heard that. And quite frankly, until we know that number from those two people in our board who are with us tonight that voted against it, I think having any other discussions not even worth it. So what's the number? Are we getting to 50? Are we getting to 60? Are we getting to 40? I mean, we got a $4 million, $3.5 million budget. This is, it's not even material. Like $50,000, it's not even material on a $3.5 million budget. So
$100,000.
let me know.
Just say $100,000.
I will
How
tell you,
much?
$100,000 is a reduction in the levy of 0.0001253. It's 13 cents. per
Which is
thousand.
nothing.
So that's
Right.
$50 on a
Great.
$400,000 home.
Okay.
Yep. So we're here because again, I mentioned this earlier. There's very important folks spoke tonight, and that's great. Majority, the vast majority, 90% of the village also had an opportunity to read, review, look in the pulse, review the budget, review the comments that were made, and they're not here. My assumption is the majority of our citizens and residents were okay with it. Otherwise, you'd have 100 people, 200 people. We've had meetings with tons of people. Doesn't minimize the people and their comments and their opinions that are with us tonight. It doesn't minimize that at all. But it's hard when confronted to stick to our commitments to each other. And, you know, unfortunately, we weren't able to do that tonight because it's uncomfortable.
Don, I look at this moving forward as this board has got a relationship with the community, and I think that I didn't realize how far we overstepped until all of it was put together and put in front of me, and I heard from some folks. And there's nothing wrong with changing your mind based on, or not changing your mind, but altering your viewpoint based on public opinion. And I stand by that. I understand what you're saying, Don. And I appreciate you feel that way. I'm sorry you feel that way,
Again,
but I can
$100,000,
understand.
but $100,000 isn't material in a budget this size. So if we want to cut and you want to appease everybody, we got to look at 500,000. We got to not build a new parks building. We got to not build a new, we have to, our capital has to.
What is the impact of reducing the loan, decreasing the loan from 4 million to 2 million? What does that actually impact on next year?
We can't build a park building.
Yeah, you just won't build a park building.
And this is the problem, that parks building has been for 20 years, we've been, oh, we're gonna build it, and then, no, we can't afford it, we push it off, push it off, push it off, push it off.
And that means we have the post office problem. If we don't get rid of the parks building,
Where's the post office gonna go?
what's
Well,
gonna happen to the post office?
We also don't know that we're gonna have to do it. I mean, like, we're presuming that the village is gonna take upon the post office on its back, where that's not something other municipalities are doing, but
Okay.
that's beyond the scope of this.
Even if you ignore the post office, okay? The public works building was originally the fire department, right? And the fire department moved here because that building was in such rough shape and they had outgrown it. We moved our public works people in there for 20 years.
I understand that. I'm not saying, I'm saying, can we do that for less than $4 million? Because $4 million seems like a big number for that building.
But we are hoping.
If you take $500,000 off of that for a 20-year debt service. I don't know, I mean, it might cut your debt service by $25,000 a year.
Tasha, if the goal is to cut 100,000 out of the budget, can we just say the parks maintenance building will be $3,900,000?
Sure.
Well, that's.
But that doesn't change your levy.
No.
I understand.
Well, and knocking 100,000 out doesn't change it either.
No, knocking $100,000 out of the public works building, unless you're gonna reallocate that funding from somewhere else in this budget, does not change your levy. You are taking out debt for that levy. You are not actually paying anything on that debt next year. Other than maybe a little bit of interest. then our interest payment doesn't even occur till 2025. Right now.
And how much are we going to pay staff for the additional meetings and the calls and everything else? I mean, we're paying everybody.
And your
here.
board members,
And
it
the-
adds up.
Everybody's getting paid.
I'd like to see a compromise. Instead of 100, let's look for 50. Let's get to 50 and get this thing moving.
I'm just wondering if the board members could reconsider understanding now what work needs to be put into republishing and the very
Yeah.
little impact that is going to be made by any changes. We take out 50, we go
Right.
to full work and we spend a whole bunch of money paying everybody here.
Yep.
And it takes a whole bunch of time and who knows who's gonna be able to attend the next board meetings.
Well, and then our biggest expenses in this budget are the ones that we can't really take off the budget. We need those. We pushed
What-
back for so many years. We
Can
pushed
you
back
give us
again.
some
That's
examples?
just gonna elevate our costs for the future.
Can you give some examples of what are our biggest expenses out here that we can,
The broadband
project
project that I feel very strongly about, that is
Contract
a
is-
basic need for our community.
How much of that is that for next, what does that look like for next year?
the interest payment on that will not occur till 2025, so nothing.
Just, okay,
Yeah,
And keep in mind, with that broadband project, long-term, houses that subscribe actually see a savings, which is offsetting what their taxes are increasing.
I just feel like all of this we already talked about and brought up in our previous discussions to get to this point. And we all agreed that by pushing these projects back more and more and more, it's just gonna elevate our costs in the future when we do really need to do them.
And we saw that with the ice rink.
Yeah.
It's been pushed back and
That's
it's
a
gone
good
up
example. It doubled almost in price and cost. Because it's
in
been pushed
over a
back.
couple of years. Everything just gets more and more and more expensive. Like Dan was saying, everything just is going up and up and up.
I mean,
And especially construction.
as staff, we have tried to evaluate needs versus wants.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of wants in this budget that I would say you can cut this and it's going to make a difference.
I mean,
There are tiny little adjustments. I mean, I have a list of nickel and diming kind of adjustments. The big ones have already been said no to.
And I'd suggest for next year, maybe we can cut back on each committee's percentage, you know.
well, let's start
We're
at a
already-
flat rate. Let's
Yeah.
not do 3, let's do 0. And then add to that if we have.
We're already making some big expenses. There won't be a need next year for those.
That's what I was saying. I think we should
There's some equipment replacement that I
about-
don't think will need to be replaced next year or purchase another truck or whatever.
As Allison said something that I think everybody brushed past, and it was on point. And it was from something Tasha said. The cutting of a 50 or $100,000 isn't going to have a material effect. So we either reconnect on passing this budget, or we really got to dive deep, and it's not happening tonight because, again, it's not material.
I hate to say it, but it needs to happen tonight. If you're going to change it, do it now.
We don't
It
do-
needs to
Well,
happen.
I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a
We're gonna do
motion.
one more
I'm going to
meeting
make
next
another
week,
motion.
fine. But
What's your motion, Don?
I'm going to make a motion that we reconsider and pass the budget as presented.
can they do that, Julie?
So Don can make a motion to reconsider his motion to approve resolution 2023-019. Whoever voted with him originally can second that and we can vote on that. And then that takes that original motion off the floor. And then we just start anew and can start with a new amendment. So sounds like Don made the motion to reconsider resolution number 2023-019. We would need a second from somebody that voted with him.
a second.
So you have the second by Allison.
Motion by Cox, second by Warner.
All those in favor? I'll let you take it now.
So now this is a revoting on the,
Well, revote, you're voting on reconsidering what he did. So you're just saying
we want to,
we want to wipe it off and discuss this anew. So
okay,
that's what this motion and second is for.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
To reconsider?
Aye.
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
So everyone's in favor, so now Don can make a motion, whatever motion you want, Don, at this point, because it's like that motion never
Well,
happened.
before okay, the reason I'm making the motion is because if we try to pick and we've already heard cutting 50 here, cutting 40, cutting 60, cutting 100 is not going to have a material effect on this budget. And quite frankly, just the suggestion of it to me feels a little bit like grandstanding and pandering. And if you really want to cut the budget, you really got to go deep. And it's the big things. It's the things we don't even want to touch. The things we probably shouldn't touch because this village needs them. And at this point, I hope that those who voted to not approve the budget as presented as have been approved in the past will understand that a little more clear now, that cutting a few bucks isn't really going to have a material effect, and we can't find it anyway. So with that, I'd make another motion to pass the budget as presented.
By Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Opposed?
So the budget passes because you had the majority of the board vote affirmative to adopt it, to approve the resolution.
Yeah, more than 3/4. Resolution number 2023-020 adopts the increase in the Sister Bay and Liberty Grove Fire Department budget for 2024. The increase in that budget is 7.4%. We have to adopt a separate resolution in order for either Liberty Grove or Sister Bay to use a levy limit adjustment on the levy limit worksheet. We have always passed this resolution.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2023-020. Adopting the increase for the Sister Bay Liberty Grove Fire Department.
Second.
Second by Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And then we've got the committed fund balance resolution.
Okay. The release of the committed fund balance, we committed fund balance back in 2021 or 2022 for a number of plans and projects that we were working on. This is the remainder of the funds to be released. And it is for plans that we are currently working on, including the comprehensive plan.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Roscoe.
Second.
By Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. 7, matters to be placed on a future agenda.
Regarding the budget and everything, we're pretty wrapped up. So the next meeting would just be a regular meeting. We have quite a bit on there, development agreements, poll worker appointments. In December. Yeah. Oh, wait, it's not November, you're right.
We got to Tuesday.
So
before.
it'll be a regular meeting,
month?
yes, this
November
one, yes.
21st.
Poll workers are December.
Then I believe a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion by Roscoe.
Second.
Second by Warner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.